All right, welcome to the Explainer. We hear the term routine chemotherapy thrown around a lot, but what is it really like for the person in that hospital bed? Well, today, we're going to find out. We're stepping right inside a patient's personal diary to see what 1 week of a chemo cycle is actually like, moment by moment.
So, our story kicks off on Monday, November 20th, 2023. The patient is back in the hospital, and you can just feel it from his first entry. This is not where he wants to be. It really sets the stage for a week that's just going to be packed with uncertainty, medical stuff, and, a lot of time to think.
Okay, let's get right into it. Day 1. Now, this isn't even about the treatment itself. Not yet. It's more about just taking everything in, making these little observations, and getting the initial plan. A plan that, as you're about to see, is, well, it's not going to last long.
So, you might be wondering, why is he even in the hospital all of a sudden? It's for something called a consolidation cycle. Now, you can think of this as a super important holding pattern. See, his big bone marrow transplant has been pushed back to January, so this round of chemo is all about keeping the cancer in check until then. It's crucial.
And right from the get-go, his diary is this mix of, the clinical stuff and his own personal take on things. The nurses are kind of surprised he doesn't have a PICC line and that he's not in isolation this time around. He even jots down that the room is a nice 24 degrees Celsius, but also that the hospital food is, well, pretty much what you'd expect. The whole plan at this point sounds almost too simple. Just 2 days of infusion and then you're out of there. Sounds easy, right?
All right, Tuesday rolls around, and this is when the full emotional weight of being back in the hospital really starts to hit. And along with it, the very first sign that this week is about to go off script.
I mean, this quote just says it all, doesn't it? It gets right to the heart of that internal struggle. We're not just talking about physical stuff like the crummy plastic-covered mattress that's making it impossible to sleep. It's that raw, deep frustration of being back in a place you fought so hard to get away from.
And then, the doctor shows up with some news. The routine blood tests, they show his platelet count has dropped. Now, platelets are these tiny little cells that help your blood clot, so the doctors watch those numbers like a hawk. And yeah, a drop from 98 to 91 might not sound like a huge deal to you or me, but in the world of chemo, even a small change like that can completely change the game.
So, just like that, poof, that simple 2-day plan is completely out the window. And what's taking its place? An urgent bone marrow biopsy. You can just imagine the new layer of anxiety this adds to everything. Now he has to wait all night for results that could literally change everything.
Okay, we're on to Wednesday, and this is the day things finally start moving. The anxiety breaks and the actual chemo regimen kicks off. And what we're about to see is a process that is, super clinical on one hand, but also deeply, deeply human.
First things first, some really good news. The doctor comes in and confirms the bone marrow is okay. That drop in platelets, not a major concern. Phew. I mean, what a huge relief that must have been. So the treatment can finally start, and that hope of getting out by Friday, it's back on.
So, the infusion process itself is like this carefully choreographed dance, It's not just plug in the chemo. First, there are cortisone eye drops. Then, they have to insert the IV cannula into his arm. After that, they give him anti-nausea meds. And only after all that is done does the chemo infusion finally begin, all managed by this super precise pump.
But here's the thing. Even in this super precise medical world, things don't always run like clockwork. The infusion pump needs to be set up just right, and what was scheduled as a 3-hour thing ends up taking nearly 4. It's a small detail, sure, but it really tells you a lot about the reality of hospital time.
And right in the middle of all this clinical routine, you get this amazing moment of human connection. He asks the nurse, "Hey, have you ever had an IV yourself?" And the nurse says that, yeah, sometimes he lets the students practice on his arms. Wow. You could feel the patient's immediate respect in his writing. It's just a small thing, but it's a powerful reminder that there are real people on both sides of that IV stand.
The day doesn't end there, though. It closes with a couple of really heavy things on his mind. First, he has to make that tough phone call to his mom, who's obviously worried sick. And second, he has the knowledge that this isn't over for the day. Nope, the next infusion is scheduled for 2:30 in the morning. There's just no real rest.
Now we're at Thursday, and this day is just a perfect picture of the dual reality of treatment, isn't it? Your body is going through this incredibly complex medical process while your mind is just racing, grappling with all the fear and worry about what's next.
So sure enough, 2:20 a.m., the nurse comes in right on schedule. And even here, in the middle of a sleepless night, there are new things to learn. The nurse casually mentions that the anti-nausea drug is actually called an antiemetic. You know, every single step of this process is a learning experience, wanted or not.
In this slide, this just highlights the core conflict of being a patient, right? On the one hand, you've got the clinical data, and it's looking good. The second infusion is over, his platelets are back up to 98. Great! But on the other hand, there's the personal reality, the human side. He's totally exhausted. He's been awake since 2 in the morning, and his mind is just filled with thoughts about his mom, about his future, all of it.
But even after that incredibly tough night, the morning does bring a little bit of hope, which is great to see. The doctors do their rounds and they confirm the plan. If everything keeps going well, he can go home tomorrow, Friday. The finish line is actually in sight. All right, it's finally Friday, but, getting out of the hospital isn't as simple as just grabbing your bag and walking out the door. Oh no. Discharge day is its own kind of marathon, filled with procedures, logistics, and all these final preparations for whatever comes next.
And yeah, that road home is a long one. The day starts before the sun is even up with his final infusion and another blood draw. He doesn't get the official okay for discharge until almost 10 o'clock. Then it's off for a pre-transplant x-ray, being pushed around by a pedone, hospital staff for transport. And only after that does the IV finally come out. And the very last stop? The hospital pharmacy.
And you have to remember, every single one of these steps is part of a much, much bigger picture. That dental x-ray, it's absolutely crucial for checking for hidden infections that could be a huge problem after the transplant. He's also got an echocardiogram to check his heart, but that's been rescheduled. And he doesn't walk out empty-handed. He leaves with critical meds, including some expensive antifungal pills and a growth factor injection that he has to give to himself. Wow.
So there you have it. We've just walked through 1 week of infusions and blood tests and plans that changed on a dime. But what this diary really truly shows us is the human story that's happening behind all the clinical data. It's a story of incredible resilience, yeah, but also frustration and hope. And that's the thing, isn't it? The true cost of a week like this, it's something you're never ever going to find on a medical chart.